This wasn't a quick shot to the head. She suffered. Can you imagine being beaten to death? A teenager?
The ghastly bludgeoning of an innocent teenage girl. It was a murder case Florida cops had little problem piecing together. And not without Ryan Holle's help.
The record shows that Holle fully cooperated with the police and told them what he knew and who else was involved in Jessica's murder.
Even though police know Ryan wasn't involved in the heist, the murder, and wasn't even at the crime scene, and simply lent his car keys to a roommate. Stunningly, he was charged with the murder of Jessica Snyder, along with the 4 other defendants.
We've run into some problems here, and I want to tell you that we've got a warrant for your arrest.
They basically say, we think you have something more to do with the crime that happened, so we're going to arrest you on an open count of murder.
It's a controversial and some say antiquated law called the felony murder rule. In some states, when people participate in certain serious crimes like a robbery or burglary or rape, and a person is murdered during the commission of that crime, everyone is held responsible for the death.
So everyone is treated like the trigger man?
Correct.
Even if they didn't pull the trigger?
Absolutely.
But how is Ryan Holle responsible? Ryan is about to learn the law the hard way.
You knew the burglary was going to happen.
I wasn't involved at all, and I didn't have any part of what they did to her.
Exactly.
And I didn't have any part when they came back to the house and they did what they did to the safe.
Exactly, but see, the problem is this. If it wasn't for the burglary being committed,
then nothing would have happened.
He knew when they left his house with his car that they were going to use it to participate or to commit the burglary, and also that if Jessica was there, she might be harmed.
But he also told investigators many times that he didn't think they were serious.
Yeah, he said that. And that's up to the jury to decide.
The felony murder rule requires that a person must have something called conscious intent, meaning that Ryan had to fully expect the burglary to take place.
You can't just be aware of something. You have to intend that the crime be committed.
That's correct. Someone has to commit a crime, and someone has to be killed during the course of the crime, and you have to have intended to assist them in the underlying offense.
But as far as Ryan Holle is concerned, there was no intent, conscious or otherwise.
Had I truly known, I would have never, ever, ever allowed that to happen.
You wouldn't have given your keys?
No, ma'am.
But prosecutors were going by the book on this one. Ryan was facing murder.
I was absolutely stunned.
In this particular case, he did nothing. He wasn't involved in planning the case. He wasn't involved in receiving any of the goods afterwards. He told him he didn't want anything to do with it.
A lot of people think it's harsh.
Do you think it's harsh?
I don't have an opinion about it.
You must have an opinion.
No, I really don't.
What prosecutor David Rimmer did have to offer was a plea deal of just 10 years in state prison for Ryan's role in the case. Ryan was the only defendant offered a deal.
I was willing to do that. I was willing to give him a break.
But the Holle family rejected the offer, and Ryan's stepfather blames himself.
I told him not to take it. If he would have taken it, he'd be home right now.
But John Garnett says he had good reason for rejecting the plea deal at the time, blaming this woman for that ill-fated decision. Sharon Wilson, Ryan's attorney. According to Ryan's stepdad, Wilson practically guaranteed a slam-dunk victory if Ryan went to trial.
She made me feel very comfortable that he would be coming home.
She told you not to take the plea deal.
Yes, ma'am.
Why?
She said that there was no way that I would be convicted at trial. Me and my family were so certain that my mother and my father, my stepfather, actually brought a change of clothes and had it in the truck.
You were expecting to go home.
Yes, ma'am.
But Sharon Wilson tells Crime Watch Daily it was Ryan's own decision to reject the plea deal, and that she knew defending Ryan was going to be a challenge under the felony murder rule.
I knew that it was going to be difficult. We had really tough facts, we had a sympathetic victim, and then we had laws that unfortunately we could not change before the trial. We were stuck with that.
But worse yet, claims Ryan's family, Wilson never explained the concept of felony murder.
She never said to you, if he does not get acquitted, he will go to prison for life without the possibility of parole. She never told you that.
I can't speak to what they understood. It is very hard to wrap your mind around that someone can be convicted under those circumstances. I don't think the jurors understood it.
And when Ryan went to trial,
She never objected to anything. She never called a witness except for Ryan.
Ryan's entire trial took just 1 day.
This was just like a ram, bam, thank you, ma'am, get her done deal in 1 day.
The families always say that. Basically, when somebody gets convicted, it becomes the attorney's fault, in spite of the bad facts.
It seemed over before it started. Not just the trial, but Ryan Holle's young life. He was found guilty and sentenced to die behind bars.
It hurt. It hurt. I just couldn't believe it, that now my life's gone forever and I'm gonna go to prison.
Do you have any regrets over charging him with the first-degree murder?
No, I really don't. I mean, I know it seems cold, but it was his decision to reject the plea offer.
The jury had an option of finding Ryan guilty of the lesser charges of second-degree murder or manslaughter. But based on their verdict, jurors felt Ryan needed the harshest punishment.
There was no car, there was no crime. No crime, no murder.
Despite the devastating sentence, Ryan has spent countless hours teaching himself law and essentially writing his own appeals, all of which have been denied. But then, a flicker of hope for Ryan. In this document, obtained exclusively by Crime Watch Daily, Florida's Office of Executive Clemency, quote, issued a favorable recommendation on your application for a commutation of sentence. Ryan is granted a hearing before the Clemency Board.
He acknowledges his responsibility and has expressed remorse for the tragic consequences of his actions.
And finds a sympathizer in Florida Governor Rick Scott.
Clemency is an opportunity to temper justice with mercy.
But Ryan's opponents were not so merciful.
He had them go do the dirty work. He knew they were going to beat a teenager with a shotgun.
He has not acted at all like an adult and more like a child that got his arm caught in a cookie jar and denies he took a cookie. He is our comparison to Charles Manson.
Ryan's mother makes her impassioned plea for compassion.
I would give my life today if I could bring Jessica back. Ryan would give his life. We are so sorry about what happened to Jessica and her family.
In the end, Ryan would not get freedom, but he would get a compromise.
I move to commute Ryan Holle's life sentence to 25 years imprisonment followed by 10 years probation.
Ryan Holle will someday taste freedom.
So what would you like to say about the fact that your sentence was commuted?
It's a blessing in the sense that I know that I'm not gonna have to spend the rest of my life in prison, but it still hurts that I'm gonna have to do another 7 years and I'll have spent 21 years and 3 months of my life incarcerated.
Back here is where we have already put a room for Ryan.
Unless he's granted a new hearing, Ryan's family won't be welcoming him home until 2024. For now, though, he knows exactly what he must do just to survive.
This deputy, when he was walking me down to the holding cell underneath the courthouse, says, Mr. Holle, if I could tell you one thing about what you're about to go through, he's like, just don't let prison turn you into an animal.
We're joined by attorneys Misty Maris and Bob Bianchi. Thank you for being here. Bob, how can somebody be convicted if he wasn't even at the crime scene?
Chris, this case has been so overblown with regard to feeling bad for this guy. If you're going to look to rape somebody, burglary, armed robbery, and you are a participant in aiding and abetting it all in that felony, you are just as responsible as the person who actually killed the person.
He lent his car to the wrong person. That's what he's guilty of. The fact that he was sentenced to life in prison is a gross injustice.
Well, 12 jurors disagreed with you and found him guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Let me just finish. No car, no murder.
I knew you were going to bring this up, Bob. You think that the one thing that stood in the way of this group of people trying to rob this woman was transportation? They would have gotten there anyway.
There's something to say about that. No car, no murder. They can't get over there.
Not to be too back to law school, but yes, that's a proximate cause theory, meaning anything that's set off in that chain, you could face the felony murder rule. There's a different theory out there that limits the felony murder rule, and that means that you have to be proven as an accomplice to the murder.
And you are an accomplice when you assist in giving the vehicle for which is used to go and commit a violent felony and potentially bandanas and potentially planned it, even though you weren't there, doesn't mean that you didn't set into motion and assist a felony in which somebody was killed.
The jury agrees with you, but when you're talking about a clemency proceeding, you're talking about justice.
You know what makes me laugh, Chris? I've been doing prosecution for half of my career, and everyone's a liberal and feels bad for guys like this until their mother, their father, their brother, or their sister is killed, and then they want everyone who's responsible, rightly so, to go to jail for felony murder, and that's what happened here.
There's another opportunity here to right a wrong, a gross injustice as far as proportionality.
Nothing is clean in a situation like this. Now, we want to hear from you. Does Ryan Holle deserve to be behind bars? Sound off right now on our Facebook page.